Okay.
Well, well, we've actually started the conversation with these people. We've starting to build a relationship with all these people we've connected to on LinkedIn. And one of the more important things is to actually follow up, because when you go to a networking group, for example, you don't go into that room and see Janine the next time and ignore her. You still talk to her. So, what's your process, Janine? What do you do with follow up? How do you go about it?
Well, I used to be very linear and I was like a machine. I had this huge spreadsheet and I had a ton of people, and you could guarantee that within 3 months you were going to hear from me at least 2 or 3 times. I was kind of known as the queen of follow up. But as my business grew, that's, when I was starting off, but then as my business grew and it matured and I became more and more successful, I started paying attention more to my intuition. And if I was on Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that, and I saw somebody come across my feed that I knew, I was like, wait, who is that person again? Like, I struggled to remember them. Then I would go back to my spreadsheets and try to find where that person and I knew each other, and I would make a comment. My favorite thing, as you know, is birthdays. I love singing happy birthday to people. And so I will do that online, and then I'll say, hey, I'd like to send you a card. So my favorite form of follow-up is literally through the US Postal Service. I love sending cards. Now, if you don't enjoy sending cards, I wouldn't recommend you do it. But for me, that is like my happy place. I mean, that is where I really enjoy being able to send a card to somebody and just brighten their day with a picture of a flower that's in my garden or something silly like that. But follow-up is very scattered. Some people would call it a very scattered system, but I always seem to hit people right when they need a little bit of an inspiration and boost. And that just makes my day. If I can make somebody's day better, that has nothing to do with business, but has everything to do with that strong connection I'm trying to build with them.
What you said there about just that follow up and keeping in touch with people. I know sometimes you just give them a phone call, and we're just going through the COVID crisis at the moment. And sometimes those people have just needed that call, that conversation you had with them. Not about selling, just a day-to-day conversation. It could be something to inspire them, to give them a little bit of advice. And Janine said she's a little bit more sporadic or all over the place with her follow-up. I'm probably more structured. I keep track of everything because I'm in business and I want to grow a business. And if I'm a sales rep out in the field, I've got a database and I keep following those people up with calls. So I actually have the initial conversation. Then a couple of months later, I actually make sure I actually make another call, because that person doesn't always think that I'm genuine about building that relationship. Sometimes they don't understand it. And it's just to reaffirm that I am a real person. I am a genuine person. I am still about building this relationship. And I want it to be started. I wanted it to be maintained, and I want it to grow into the future. And then I'll push it out to wherever. And like Janine, I always love to send them a birthday card, not just a birthday card, but a thank you card. If I can get their address and say, thank you for being a connection. Thank you for being that person that's in my life now as part of my network. And let's see if we can help each other in the future. And if I can, I'll also send them a birthday card, because it lets you stand out. You want to be the person that stands out from the crowd. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do on LinkedIn, be that person that stands out.
Correct. And through that is follow up. So I have been in some sort of sales or marketing ever since I was 10 years old. The very first business I had was I was selling earthworms to bait shops. Yes, I was one of those kids from the Midwest of the United States. However, one of the things I learned about follow up was you needed to make sure that you did it in appropriate time. So I always send a thank you card. Like I said, I enjoy cards, so that was my form of follow up. But when it comes to phone calls and things like that, sometimes I'll be working on a project and for no reason whatsoever, I will hear, you need to call so-and-so. I just pick up the phone. So I think a lot of times people think that because of millennials and where they are in the generation gap or whatever your paradigm is, that phone calls aren't very helpful or productive. Actually, they are. I will leave messages, even though I know 90% of my millennials won't listen to them. But then I'll text them right after and said, I left you a message. Look for my email. And then I'll sit there and I'll type an email up with links or wherever that I'm trying to send them information. So sometimes the follow-up is rather convoluted like that, but then they're getting 3 touch points from me in that one particular situation, just because I wanted to make sure they got the message. And of course, it had nothing to do with sales. It just was me following up with them as a person.
And I think one of the messages you said there was touch points. And there's so many ways you can touch people and just keep in contact with them. And people put posts on LinkedIn, so just make a comment on it. That's a touch point. That's keeping in touch. and they might send you a message back through LinkedIn. Send them another message back. And we talked earlier about sending voice messages. I'll send a voice message back because once again, I stand out from the crowd. And Janine talked about sending text messages. I've now taken it to another level. I actually send a voice text message because once again, I'm different to everybody else and I want to stand out. And I think it actually gets people's inquisitiveness up. They start to, what's this voice message through a text? So if you can do that and just keep front of mind, that's what follow-up's all about. Doing it consistently and as regularly as you can possibly, wherever it may be.
So you hear about follow-up all the time. And the biggest thing is what you are comfortable doing. Start with that process first. For me, it was always like after a Zoom call or after a phone call or any kind of connection, I would send a thank you card or a thank you email, whatever the connection point was. But then continue to build the relationship so that you get more and more of their contact information in a very organic way, so that you are building upon that friendship that you eventually will turn into either a paying client or a collaborator. And that's where my business thrives, is in collaboration and continuing partnerships. So depending upon what your business actually is, will determine what way you will follow up and what will be a more organic system for you.
So the whole point of follow-up is to be remembered and be top of mind. And that's so important. And unfortunately, not enough people do it. But if you can do it, guess what? You might be surprised.